Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, their habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back to another great episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino. And today I have a special guest. His name is Will Marsh. Hey, Will, how are you?
Hey, Cesar, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let me give you a little bit of his background. So Will brings refined melody, imagination, and devotion to all aspects of his music. He has been performing classical sitar for 14 years and guitar for 20. He is blessed to have studied under India's greatest musicians. Will's taleem training began under Ustad Aashish Khan, the eldest son of Ustad Ali Akbar Khan, at the California Institute of the Arts, where Will received his M.F.A. in world music. He has also worked with sitar masters Roshan Jamal Bhartiya, Tushar, Bhaita, and Shakir Khan. Will resides in the California Bay Area, where he's active teacher, performer, and recording artist. Awesome. Will, I'm so excited and definitely want to tap into it. I love, by the way, the background. I like all of those colors. It seems like you are definitely very engaged with the music. So before we get there, though, I want to get to know you from where are you originally from and how was your child upgrowing?
Sure. So I'm originally from a small town in northern Michigan called Traverse City. It's a beautiful town, and I grew up just with a great family, got to do a lot of outdoor activities as a kid, and prior to discovering music, I was really, really into fishing. I just loved being on the river. I could be there all day. So I was blessed to really grow up in the natural world, and my family, I don't really have artists or musicians in my immediate family, but they really saw my dedication and my inspiration, and they encouraged and supported me. And I'm really blessed to have that, for taking such a unique path. And the place I grew up is always going to be special for me. And there was an interesting time where I got really into guitar, and that was clear. And I was able to attend an internationally renowned arts academy. And it happened to be within driving distance of where I live. Now, most of the other students, they were international. They were from Israel, Venezuela, Mexico, Europe, and they lived there. They boarded there. So I was what they call the day student, one of the few people that came and left. And getting to study there, it changed my whole path, because I got to be in a diverse community of artists. I got to study classical and jazz and all these things. So that came from where I grew up in northern Michigan.
At what age were you introduced to music, or you found yourself interested in the music aspect?
So the first strongest memory I have was just being in a friend's basement, and his sister had a guitar in the corner, and I just picked it up, and just like hearing the sounds that it made,
yeah.
It was like, this is cool. Like I was really into it. And like I said, no, there weren't any instruments in my home, or, when we had family gatherings, we wouldn't have anyone playing live music. So that was the first time I picked up an instrument, and it was just fascinating to me.
Yeah. How old were you?
I was about 11.
11? Got you.
Yeah, yeah.
So it kind of going once you picked up that instrument and you remember that moment growing up in middle school, high school. Did you ended up joining music class or any of that aspect in school?
Yeah, so that was a big part of my transition from my regular high school to this arts academy. The arts academy was 10th through 12th grade. So prior to that, I had bands and I would play at the talent shows, and I took private lessons. But then when I went to the arts academy for high school, it's like my major was guitar. So I had
Mm.
guitar ensemble. I had tons of music classes. So that was really a powerful transition for me to be able to be immersed in what I love as a young, teenager.
Got you. And I guess one thing that comes to mind, I know sometimes, and I'm not sure if this was part of your case. Nevertheless, I know that sometimes people tend to either turn into sports or to music or to writing or to something else during their childhood or high school years. And a lot of times is, there's that compelling factor, nothing's wrong. It's just a desire of wanting to do that. Sometimes though, it is more of I want to get away from some sort of reality that I don't want to live in anymore. Did you find yourself in that, or was more on the first aspect?
I think it was more on the first aspect. There was so much inspiration
Hmm.
that came from music, and just my desire to go deep in it was just so strong. Like I could literally just sit with a guitar all day and practice. It did kind of, it gave me a more introverted experience, I think, which now I'm wanting to be more involved in the world, and it did become a bit of a retreat. I wasn't as social as I might have been if I was in like a team or something.
Mm.
But that's a part of my personality too, is I am kind of someone who likes to focus, and I can spend time by myself. But I would say, reflecting back, that it shaped me in a way, and it also was a part of my natural tendencies.
Got you. And what was it growing, kind of coming out of high school and going to college or into more of the adulthood years in terms of your music? What is now seems to be your career. Back then, maybe that was not the case. What was that like for you?
Well, it was really interesting. First of all, just moving from northern Michigan to the Los Angeles area. My school is in Santa Clarita, which is kind of on the outskirts of LA County. And it was just weird for me to see a place like Michigan. The seasons are so intense, and there's no
Yeah,
freeways we don't have a
yeah.
freeway. So like just getting used to the culture was very strange at first. And I grew up in a lot of nature and space. And at our college, we only had like one little patch where there was like some bushes and stuff. And I used to kind of go there to just be like, how can I feel some nature? But
Yeah.
I was lucky at my college because I very much was focused there with a very, artistic musical life. So that felt good and like comfortable. It was more of just the cultural change to moving to Southern California.
And definitely, I can definitely relate to that. I've never been to northern Michigan. I can only imagine, though, it's very different. Not only in the sense of you don't see too many ethnicities or cultures, right? Where you come to SoCal and you're from Hispanics to Indians to Chinese to you name them, right? Like everybody's here, and
Right.
so I can see that being uh, definitely a huge culture change. How did you embrace that? Because I think that regardless whether you come here from another country, like I came from Mexico, I'm from Mexico, and coming here, it was difficult for me adjusting to that. Except it's the same thing as you're coming from a small town where you don't have the diversity, and sometimes that can be very a culture shock, right? So how did you embrace that, or did you had any challenges with that?
I loved that. Like for me as an artist, like I've always drawn inspiration from all parts of the world, and it's something unique about the artistic community is that like it doesn't like there's such an immediate connection with musicians and artists because the language of music is universal. And my teacher was from India, 80 years old, and his English was kind of funny, and but like I just loved getting that experience and that diversity, and it was very like it felt right to me, like this is where I meant to be. So that was actually one of my favorite aspects, and one thing I still love about California. It's why I live out here. I need that diversity of people to do my profession and to feel that feels like the right place in the world for me. So
yeah,
it was a really positive kind of shift.
yeah, definitely. So why guitar or this kind of music versus any other kind of instruments, and or even the type of studies that you did in terms of the music?
So guitar just became the first instrument I got really serious on, and I got very proficient. You know, I practiced like 10 hours a day, and it was just like,
wow.
Yeah, I was very into it. And so the reason I chose California Institute of the Arts is because they're known for having music from all over the world. They have a world music program, which is not very common. And I knew that I was curious about the music of the rest of the world and how can I tap into that and draw that inspiration into my own music. And so that's what inspired me to go there. And my thought was that I would just keep focusing on guitar, but I would get into these other things and take the ideas and compose my own music. And that still happened, but I ended up getting deep into the sitar music. And that was not expected at all.
Yeah.
It was a huge shift, and it was, an obsession of my life for years.
Yeah, definitely. One thing you talked about is you did 10 hours of practice every day. Why would you spend so much time? Like, I mean, if I'm on this, I'm like, why would you even, we have 24 hours in a day, right? So why take of those 24 hours, you're probably sleeping 6 to 8 hours. And then, you really have very minimal hours left. Why spend 10 hours on that? What was the driving factor? Why is that so critical?
For me, just being involved in the expression and the study of music was just like complete inspiration and joy. And it's like, this I know I meant to do. And the arts are never ending. It's like there's not any finish point. It's like you can there's always something to explore. And I grew up on Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin, and then I was playing Bach on classical guitar, and I was studying jazz improvisation, and also having great teachers and mentors who, like, they're giving me material that's pushing me, and I can see the levels coming up. So it's in some ways it's like sports too, where like that drive to get better is there, and you feel that excitement when you can do things that you didn't think you could do.
Yeah, definitely. You actually talked about a couple of different points and I just want to reemphasize that because I think it's critical for our listeners and our viewers to really hone in on that and really listen to what you just mentioned. And, the fact that you're doing a 10-hour practice every day is, as you mentioned, it was an expression and a study of music, except it's beyond that, right? And you can translate it to anything you want to do in life, right? If you want to be a doctor, you want to be a teacher, you want to be an investor, you want to do whatever you want to do, is that when you have something, and you mentioned this, you were meant to do this, right? So when you're meant to do something and you want it so bad, you're going to put in the time regardless of whatever that might be, right? And so that's one thing that, as I talk about in this podcast before, is that being able to overcome obstacles takes that tenacity and that drive and that consistency of just putting in the work. The other thing too, you said is it's a never ending. You're always there's something for you to always explore, right? And that's true too. Is like we never gonna end up finishing this learning experience in anything that we do, whether it's music, whether it's becoming a real estate investor, or a book author. You're always gonna keep going and going and going. So that's very critical. And the last thing you talked about is having teachers and mentors that are pushing you. And the reason why I think that's critical is because sometimes we forget and we believe that we don't need anybody else. We have all the answers. Yet we need that teacher or mentor to push us through our limits because they can see something that sometimes we cannot see in our own selves, right? And so I can see that in your own story and how you talked about putting in the time and doing it and the reasons why you did it, right?
Yeah.
Now, in terms of looking back now, I would say, from the time you were born to maybe to this point now, what has been your biggest obstacle that you had to overcome in your life that really might have put you in a low moment in your life, maybe mentally, physically, whatever the case may be? What has that thing been, and how did you overcome that?
So that for me is definitely the step from being an inspired artist to really making it a career and getting through that starving artist stigma. That was very, very difficult because in this time that I was in school, I was a student. I was able to practice and focus, that was a blessing. And I lived in that world of just like study and, the teachers are my inspirations, and I have an identity in the school, and, and then I'd go home in the summers and I'd play gigs a lot. We have a tourist town, so I'd make money when I go home, and, there was this kind of certain flow to that. And then after school, I moved to Los Angeles, into the city, and it's like, all right, I'm going to do the music thing. And man, it was hard. I had no family, a few friends, but LA is very scattered, and it's hard to really create that community from nothing. And I hit a point where it was just like, what is the point of all this stuff I've done if I'm like barely struggling to make rent, and I'm not getting other work easily, and I don't feel, it's like, what is my place in society? How does my art fit into the world? And did I make a wrong choice? And I'm not, all these questions really hit me, and it was tough. My physical health struggled, my mental health, but there was just enough, motion from the divine to keep me going, and I'm in a different place now. So that was my biggest obstacle to overcome.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And I definitely want to touch on that for 1 second. So you came here by yourself to LA?
Yep.
Right. So no family. So, a lot of times at the end of the day, when we look at that, and that thing that you just described is, that, that inner voice that we have, or just maybe the circumstances or what we see around our society, where we feel like, what is the purpose, right? Why am I even doing this? And I think that a lot of people get stuck in that moment in place, or in that moment in life, where because of those different things that are taking place, they feel like, what, I might have made a mistake, and therefore I have to give up and just go back to either what I used to do in the past, or even worst case scenario, some people get into deep depression that can lead to even more crucial aspects in life, especially when you come to a different city. You don't know anyone, you don't have no family, you do not have any of those people that can support you. I guess my biggest thing is, what were some things that you did to kind of carry you through that? Because it's not an overnight thing. It's not like, okay, today I'm good or I'm bad, and tomorrow I'm good, right? There's a leading aspect that's going to take you to continue to move and have the momentum. So what were some of the things that you did?
One of the things that really I maintained was I still practice, and I still kept this commitment to what I knew my soul needed to do, even if I didn't know how it was really going to work in the long run. I had this tenacity to not give up my practice and not give up my music, and that really stayed strong, and it kept me through. There's so much joy that I derive from that and that expression, and keeping that alive was crucial, because if I didn't, then I would have taken a different path. That's for sure. The other thing was getting out into nature really helps me. And that was important to honor like who I am. And, there's a lot of pressure to like try and meet film producers and, make the career work. But to be able to honor that, like, I'm somebody who needs to be around trees at least once a week. So like, learning how to structure your life to suit your needs is something that nobody can teach you. You have to learn that yourself. So that was my time of life where, I had to really learn, like, what are my needs and how can I keep myself, because just discipline doesn't work if you're not like well, in your physical, spiritual, mental capacity. So I started to learn, how to do that and how to nurture my soul by getting out into nature. And those were the two most crucial things.
You talk about commitment and tenacity. How do you define that, right? Like for you, like how do you define, because I think those are two very powerful words, and sometimes we tend to forget the true meaning of that, or the meaning of that that place in our journey, right? So how do you define that in for you?
For me, it's an inner knowing. It's a trust. There's trust and there's surrender. It's like, and that's something that I learned from my mentors. It's like when they play music, like they're devoting their whole self into that experience. And when you do that, you're going beyond, all the fears or concerns or trying to understand with the mind, is this the right direction or not? And to me, that is the gem, it's something precious that if you maintain it, you'll always have that. And so to me, it's trust, it's inner knowing, and it's an honoring of there is a bigger purpose here, that there's a reason why I'm doing this. And
Yeah.
I'm just going to go with that.
Wow, I love that. Trust, surrender, and devoting yourself to that experience, putting away all the fear, right? And I think that's a good way to define commitment. When you're committed to something, you're going against all of the odds, and you're going to continue to push through and just trust the process, just surrender to the process in a good way. And as you said, just be devoted to that experience and know that there's a bigger purpose. I love that, because again, it is one of those things that we tend to take for granted. And being committed to something is more than just saying I'm going to do it. It's taking the actions. Is like you said, even if you didn't see the light at the end, you still practice, you still find ways to go out about and structure your life to suit your needs, and connect with your spiritual, physical, mental capacity. It's a combination of all those different things. So that's amazing. So let's talk about now, you're now here where you're at now. How do you ended up getting to the place that you are? What are some of the things that you're doing within the music and more of that?
Right. So over my time in California, I built up a kind of my own grassroots following and my own connections and people that I work with and private students. And so that really happened organically, just in my time of just being there and toughing it out through those hard times. And now I'm at a point where I'm really stepping into the entrepreneur space of like, what can I do to maximize and leverage my passion to being a full career? And, COVID's been a really interesting time for musicians, because a lot of my favorite work is performing, right? And that's kind of my best money maker, is when you're playing live for a wedding or at a private venue, or you're on tour. And that has all shut down. So it's really given me this time to focus on, what are some things I can do to share my gift and become more, sound financially and career wise. And so I've been making my own videos and buffing up my YouTube channel. I learned how to edit on Final Cut Pro.
Yeah.
Really cool. I have a friend who's helping me with a really tight business plan of these are the things that need to get done. These are the timelines. And so really getting that time to zone in on like, all right, I know this is what I love. I'm already doing it. Good things have happened. What is the next step? And let's go full into that. And it's felt really good.
Yeah.
It's hard when musicians' life are unique, because you're out in the world teaching and playing, and there's not the schedule can fluctuate, and so it's like now this time of like, okay, I don't have anything to go play for. I'm not going on tour, so it really gave me that focus, which didn't, it doesn't come natural to me. I'm not somebody who likes to be on the computer for 6 hours of the day, but I've learned to develop other skills, and I feel really good about that.
Yeah, and another thing that you mentioned right now is the fact that you were able to adjust, and at least what I'm hearing from, you're talking, as of the recording of this video, we've kind of, actually, I don't even know where we're at, whether to the end or the middle of the COVID-19, this pandemic, right? Nevertheless, at the end of the day, whether it's the COVID-19 or something similar, or something else that might be holding you back, or at least we perceive as being holding you back, I think the lesson to be learned and the message you're trying to translate here is that regardless of the circumstances, you can definitely create something when you have to have the ability to, like you said, focus, learn some new skills, like look at what are some of the possibilities that you can do rather than focusing on the negativity, right? And it seems like that's what you've done, right? Um, is there anything else that maybe you can elaborate in terms of that? Because obviously we are going through this times that are not just affecting, the U.S., it's literally the worldwide, except again, what you focus upon will expand. And if you focus on the great things and see the good things out of that, you can create something, right? So any more that you can elaborate on that?
Well, I think it's about really taking the responsibility of, you can't control the world around you. And it's like, what can I do every day to keep developing my passion, my vision, whatever that is for all of us? And you need to have that ability because the world is always changing. And for me, it was the first couple of weeks when I realized, man, there's no gigs and all my stuff got canceled. I was depressed for a couple of weeks. I felt a little lost, and I just moved to the Bay Area because there's a lot of musicians that I work with up here, and that was my whole vision, to move here and be involved in all these ensembles and all these great musicians, and it all stopped. So I think you really, to be able to have that capacity to get over that, disruption, and then just start thinking and getting creative. And I'm making an online course that I'm really excited about and shooting it at my home studio, and I'm really inspired, and it's something that can reach a lot of people. And I wouldn't have done this if I wasn't in this situation. So it's like, you really got to always be flexible, and the inspiration always, it needs to find the channel. Like, you see these little plants that grow like literally in the pavement.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of that a lot. It's like, there's always a way. There's always a way. And that's one of our big lessons, as humans.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about lessons, one thing you talk about, which I want you to elaborate on, that is continue to pursue what inspires you, regardless of what it takes, right? And so, can you give us more of that and elaborate on that comment?
Yeah. So I think it's about honoring that inspiration, because when you're doing something you love or that truly inspires you, like, that energy goes beyond just that moment or that time that you're engaged in it. Like, it brings that joy and that positivity and those qualities of who you're meant to be. And I believe that it creates experiences that are not going to happen if you just change and decide, well, okay, COVID happened and I can't perform, I'm going to find another full-time job, like that wouldn't have honored my real needs. And instead I'm actually creating more abundance in my career through this unexpected change. I'm looking at things that I wouldn't have looked at, and I'm making those possibilities happen. So it's really, you got to honor what inspires you. That is your biggest kind of guide map in life. And in my personal experiences, I believe if you follow that, like, good things will keep coming. And there's trust that needs to be there.
Yeah, definitely. So, Will, if people wanted to connect with you, how can they find you?
So my website's a great landing place. It's willmarshmusic.com. And from there, you can get to my YouTube channel. I just released my first track on Spotify, which you can find under my name, Will Marsh. And those are the best ways. I'm on Instagram as well, Marsh Strings. And I'm putting out a lot more content on lesson videos and music recordings. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So I have a couple more questions before I let you go. Also, though, I've never done this before, and I think this will be if you're okay with this, I would love to hear you probably play an instrument for a little bit. I think that would be pretty awesome. Definitely, we need more of this. The music, I love music. I love the sound of music, and so I think this would be pretty awesome. So we can play that towards the end, if time permits, right? The next question I have for you is, are there any specific things that you do on a daily basis besides practicing your music that can put you in this positive state of mind? Because I think that's critical, right, for us to continue to move forward. Is there anything you do, any habits that you have?
Yeah, so I have a morning routine of physical exercises that I do. There's breathing involved and there's tensing of the muscles, and it really, I feel so much better after it. And it's only 20 minutes. And so I make a point to do that before I jump into my work. And then I follow that by a period of meditation and just stilling the mind and doing this before opening up the laptop and checking emails. Like, it really puts me in a better space. And I think it allows more creativity to come through during the day. And I mean, I just immediately seen, it's probably been maybe 3-4 years I've kept that routine, and it's very important. And another one is like having a day of the week where you're going to have some fun, like intentionally. Sunday. My girlfriend and I just like to go explore somewhere new on Sunday and like go to some park or beach that we've never been to. And it keeps the week really fresh and special. And so those two things have been really supportive of me, staying inspired and productive.
Would you do it any different? Would you stop doing that, or you think that this is not part of my life moving forward?
No, it's working, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, right. Why change something that if it's working, definitely. And I like the fact that you actually are blocking a day or a time during the week to be able to just be joyful and have and embrace life, have life and embrace life, because sometimes we as entrepreneurs forget that and we are constantly just working and working and working. And although that might be okay, at the same time, I believe that you have to find that life balance, right? And so that's very important if you can actually throw that into your weekly schedule. So that's awesome. Yeah. The last question I have for you is, if the people that are listening to us or watching us, if there's anything that they might be going through right now, some sort of challenge, what would be your best advice in terms of how they can start overcoming that challenge now?
So my biggest message today is to never ignore the things that really light you up and inspire you. Like maybe, music or the arts, it's not your profession, but it's something that you just love to do every day. And I think we need, especially, with COVID, people were not as social, and it's very important to keep those things that bring us joy in our lives, And so I encourage people now to keep that in their life, whether it's music or just something that you can do every day that really nurtures you and lights you up. Like, don't ever let that go. And also for maybe somebody who is an artist or maybe going through a time like I went through, it's my message is that when you're doing something that you're meant to do, trust that. Don't give up on that. And, life can be unpredictable. There can be twists and turns, but you got to follow what you're meant to do and believe that you'll come through and rely on your mentors and your inspirations. There's a reason that you have that connection. And I'm thinking back to my mentors, and, they went through their times too. And you got to trust, and you got to do what you're meant to do.
Yeah, definitely. You have to have that faith and just, like I said, commitment, tenacity, keep moving forward, regardless of the circumstances. So, Will, if I don't know if you have time, maybe you can give us a little bit of, your music or something to that extent if you have time. And then, definitely give us a little bit of that and what that means after you're done playing.
Yeah. So I'm going to grab an instrument behind me here. And now this is the Indian sitar, and I'm choosing this because, people might not have heard it. It's
Yeah.
less common than the guitar. And so I'm going to get in position here. Now this is a 20-stringed instrument. So you're going to hear me in a second starting to tune up these strings.
Mm.
So this is an instrument from North India. And I'll play a melody. And our melodies actually all fit with a time of day or season that we play it. So I'm going to play just maybe a little clip of an afternoon Indian melody. It's called a raga. And this is called Rag Bhimpalasi.
Awesome. Bravo. I love that. And in looking at that, a few things that come to mind, like very relaxing, right? So is this something that you can actually this kind of music you can listen to kind of soothe the mind and just kind of relax and meditate, or even start, thinking or just, embracing that now moment, right? I always talk about, let's embrace today, this second, this moment, because that's going to help us, in our near future. Is this something that you can find common for that kind of purpose?
Yeah, I love that, because that's one of my intentions, and one of the gifts of this music is it connects us to just the moment. And it comes from a long tradition of like devotion and temples, and just this sense of sound and music being a way to connect us back to the present moment. And what I love about this music is it's so connected to nature, and gives people that experience of like, oh wow, I can breathe and be transported. It can take you to another place too. So
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, this again, it was beautiful. I love that. It's really great sound, and I can see how that can help. And looking at that instrument, I mean, it must be very difficult to learn how to play something like that with that many strings. I can only imagine. So,
yeah, it takes a lot of commitment, and it's difficult. I still practice every day just to keep my
yeah,
hands going, and yeah.
yeah. Wow. Will, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I really enjoyed it, and thank you for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Cesar. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure that you like, share, and comment on this podcast recording show. And please come down and share this with your friends. I will definitely be looking forward to seeing you at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Have a good day.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.